Have you ever felt completely invisible? Like you were in a room full of people, but you didn't matter? I remember the first time that it happened to me. Fairfield Junior Senior High School, 7th grade. Let me set the table for you a little bit there. Because in the 7th grade at Fairfield Junior Senior High School, there was a table with really cool kids. And at this table, they were wearing things like Jordache jeans, right? Yeah. They were sporting these United Colors Benetton shirts. Can I get a whoop whoop? Yeah. So you feel me, right? But I have to tell you, my mom was a stay-at-home mom at the time. She, on the side, peddled Tupperware. She was a car-carrying Tupperware queen. We had the minivan for years, station wagon for years to prove with the wood on the sides. You guys, I was all kinds of cool. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, my dad worked in this factory, and he had this job since he was like 17 years old. And my parents were pretty young when we were born. When we came onto the scene, there were 3 of us at home. And so my mom and dad worked tirelessly to provide for us. But I didn't measure up when it came to comparing myself to other kids. So I remember walking into this mob scene, crime scene, if you will. Because in my mind, that's still what it is, right? I walked into the lunchroom, and I'm not even playing. We couldn't afford tray lunches, right? So I had my little brown paper bag lunch. No, just kidding. I had a little Tupperware, little container. It was glorious, not really. I was so embarrassed by it. It was red, and it had this plastic dome clear lid thing, and the handles that came together on the top and locked, right? Like every 7th grade girl dreams of doing. So I walk into this cafeteria, and as I mentioned, it was a junior, senior high school. So I walk into this cafeteria where there are seniors present. And I have C lunch, right? So I was convinced that all the cool kids had A lunch and B lunch, and here I was on C lunch. And then I really need to back up a little bit further and tell you that earlier that day I made my grand entrance into Fairfield Junior Senior High School by showing up in homeroom, where I thought I was supposed to be, and I was sitting in there as a 7th grader with a room full of seniors who were looking at me like, what are you doing in here? And finally it dawns on me. So already at this point in the day, I'm feeling a little invisible, right? I'm feeling like maybe I just don't belong here. It was so awkward. And so I make my way into the lunchroom, and I realize that there were already some divisions there. The cool kids say, well, the Jordache jeans, almost big hair. Like we weren't totally on the big end yet, but we were heading there, right? We were starting to really get into White Rain and you feel me, right? The shellac, as my parents used to call it. So we had these divisions, and I'm already feeling invisible, and I'm thinking, man, I don't belong here. How in the world am I going to survive for 6 more years feeling invisible? The older I got, and the older I continued to get, the more I realized, as a woman in today's society, I'm going to battle that same sense of feeling invisible every morning when I get out of bed. The truth of the matter is, someone's always going to have kids who are making the honor roll, right? Because mine don't. Just do not tell them I told you this. But like when I get up, and you know how everybody does, like you get on your phone first thing in the morning, right? Inevitably, there's someone's kid there with like their honor roll certificate. And the parent is like, I am one proud mom. Just let me brag for one quick second here. My little Sally, and she's excelling in everything, right? Okay, so already I don't stack up in that department. And then I see other people who have things that I wish I had. And then I just see myself falling short over and over again. And so what began in the high school, junior high lunchroom for me continued into the boardroom. Have you ever felt invisible at work? Have you ever felt like everyone else's opinions mattered but yours? Have you ever felt overlooked or undervalued? Maybe that same sense of invisibility has reared its ugly head around your dining room table. Maybe you feel like your husband doesn't even notice you exist. Because we know he don't know all that you get done in one day. That is just a side. But maybe you feel like he doesn't know that you exist. And so we deal with these feelings of invisibility as women and as Christians, don't we? And we have to learn what it means to become a part of the family. I want to invite you in today to pull up a chair and to gather around the table for a quick second. Table is where all kinds of fun stuff happens. You know, when I think back through all of the years and all of the experiences I've had around tables, there have been some bad ones. There have been times when the table means, I've got something to tell you. There have been times when the tables meant, I've got someone I want you to meet. There have been times when the table has meant, let's figure this out together. But I want you to understand that at the table this afternoon, you belong. Pull up your chair, get comfy, and embrace your spot for just a second. Because at this table, there's room for you, and there's room for you, and there's room for me. In each and every one of our areas of giftedness and difference, we belong together. I'm going to read for you this afternoon. Sorry, I've got Sunday morning preacher mentality, don't I? Matthew chapter 14. This is an account that I'm assuming probably many of you are already super familiar with, and it starts like this. Matthew chapter 14, verse 13. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them and he healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. When what was present was presented, Jesus made it more than enough at that table. I want us to notice a few of the actions that Jesus took during this account, right? We're going to focus on 4 words, and they are this: chosen or taken, blessed, broken, and shared. You can read several times throughout Scripture when there was a meal served, or when Jesus was performing a miracle, or during the Last Supper. There are four distinct things that Jesus does. He takes, he blesses, he breaks, and he shares. And so we're going to visit those 4 terms just a little bit this morning. But I want you to understand what exactly was happening during this account. Jesus had just gotten the word that his cousin, John the Baptist, had died. So here he is in his human sense, right? And we have to know and believe that Jesus was then grieving because his friend and his cousin had just died. But I want you to understand a layer that's even a little bit deeper here. The people had hoped that someone would come in and become their leader who could help them take back what they thought was theirs. And so the people, the community, if you will, were waiting for someone who was willing to come in and to grab the people and to put them together into one team so that they could together become this giant army of people and take back what they thought should rightfully be theirs. So they start getting wind of Jesus performing miracles, and they start hearing stories of Jesus. And so all of a sudden their curiosity is piqued, and they come out of nowhere because they're like, we got to go see this guy. This might be our guy. And so they come together with expectation, and together they brought what little they had. But you'll notice at the end of that account, the little that they had, once it was taken and blessed and broken and shared, was more than enough for everyone at the table. I have a confession to make. I have a super mom cape. Sometime maybe I'll let you see it. Like, I'm really good at being extraordinary at everything. Like, I can balance anybody else. Like, I run the schedules of 5 people, right? This is no, like, I have my own corporation, I feel like, in my house. I'm running the schedules of 5 people. I'm buying everyone's groceries. I'm paying bills. I'm cleaning. I'm doing whatever. I'm also working full time. So I've got all of these things I've got going. And I have the sweetest little 5-year-old on the planet. Did you miss that part about my story this morning? Yeah, God has a sense of humor. I have a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and then my little surprise 5-year-old. So, yeah, it's real funny. You laugh. My little girl last summer, she's at the age where she doesn't notice when mommy's, we're going to call it distracted, right? Because when I have my super mom cape on, I'm distracted. But you guys, I'm really good at it. So I don't think your average Joe would notice, but here's what happened. She decided that she wanted to go outside and she wanted to play in the yard. And it was a beautiful summer day. And so I said, well, okay, yes, let's do it, because super mom, I got it going on. I can handle this. So you know what I did? I grabbed one of the camping chairs from the garage, and I took it outside and I set it up in the driveway, and I brought my laptop out with me because ain't nobody got time to fool with my work schedule, right? Like, do not mess with it. But she's wanting to play, and I'm super mom, so I'm gonna make it happen, right? So I go out there and I'm sitting in the driveway with her, and she does the whole, you've been there, 4-year-old thing. Hey, Mom, look! And you're like, yes, outstanding. And then 2 seconds later, she's like, hey, Mommy, watch! And you're like, you go, girl. You guys, I have all these things. I have all these little lines down pat. I can give them without making eye contact. I can keep working unbroken, right? This is the only time in my life when my ADD does not kick in. I'm like right here on my work, right? And so I'm like, yeah, you are awesome, kid. You go, girl. You go. And so she just kept saying, hey, Mommy, watch. And I'm like, yes, you are awesome. And you guys, I was kicking out the workload that day. Like, I felt like I needed 2 super mom capes or something. It was that good. And all of a sudden, in the middle of what I was doing, her 4-year-old hands cupped my face. And she moved my chin to look in my eyes. She said, Mommy, notice me. All of us are screaming to be noticed. And I want you to understand that the taken, chosen piece is that you're noticed. God is not some pie in the sky kind of God who sits up there in his super God cape, pulling all the marionette strings and calling all the shots, you guys. He's not sitting there saying, you go, girl, I noticed you. You are awesome at work today. You are awesome at mothering today. You even got time to work out. Woo-hoo, you go, girl. It's like he is looking you in the eye all day long because he notices you. At the table, I'm noticed. At the table, you are noticed. At the table, we experience family. And many of us, because we're ashamed or embarrassed of our stories, we don't pull our chair up to the table. We're afraid that someone won't notice us. We're afraid that someone else is maybe more important than we are. We're afraid of really being seen. But at the table, when you pull your chair up, he says, I choose you. You're taken. You are valued. You are loved. A couple of summers ago, we took what I consider to be one of my all-time favorite family memories. Now, if you've ever done family vacation, I want you to just stop and think for a second, because this is a true story. After I started a couple of years ago, writing down on my phone, like favorite memories, just like jotting down random stories of whatever that happened on our trips, because here's what ends up happening. I'm hearing griping and groaning out of this ear in the back seat from maybe like said 15-year-old. Let's just say I'm sharing this story for a friend, right? Because I know your kids don't gripe when you're on vacation. They're so into whatever you're doing. And especially if you want to visit anything historical, they're all in, right? Okay, so we take this trip to California, and we're having the best time. And we go to Yellowstone one day, or Yosemite, and my little girl, who at the time was 3, she fell down and she scraped her knee. Now, my family makes fun of her, like my parents and my siblings, they make fun of her because, and she doesn't know this yet, so I'll accept donations to her therapy fund on the way out. But when she gets hurt, she thinks it's the end of the world. I'm gonna say that came from Dad. Yeah. So, when she gets hurt, she thinks it's the absolute end of the world, right? So we're in Yosemite, and she totally is like when she gets excited, she wants to run to me. Well, she's got my coordination. And so every single time she goes to run to me, she totally wipes out, right? So the poor girl wipes out in the middle of a parking lot. She's scraped up her knees. She's totally bloody. And we're like, smile for the pictures, you know? And so the whole rest of the day, at this point, it was like 90 degrees and it was hot. And so she's a typical 3-year-old, and she's getting uncomfortable and she's upset. And so we get in the car and we begin the drive to the next spot. Well, I know that every mother in here at this point is thinking, the drive, I've been there. You couldn't pay me to do it again on purpose. Because to trap me in a vehicle moving down the road with 4 other humans who are complaining at me is not my idea of a good time. So we're in the car, and she's in the back seat, and she's starting in on her, you know, she's 3, so let's give her a little bit of grace here, but she's pulling the drama part a little bit, right? So she's crying and she's going on, and I did what, don't even tell me you moms in here haven't done it. I met her cries and pleas with silence. Because I was in my happy place. I had my Zac Brown band on. I had the windows down, and I didn't need to hear any drama, I'm thinking, right? No, because I knew totally she was fine, and she was just overly tired. But here's what happened. After a few minutes, she's in the back. She's starting to pull herself together. And at some point, she says to me, Mommy, are you whispering? Because I can't hear you. Oh no, honey. Mama's ignoring you. Wasn't what I really wanted to say, but I didn't, right? So what ends up happening in that moment, we all just really lost it, because bless her heart, she just wanted some attention at this point, right? But I said that to say this. There are times in our lives when we feel like that. When we're asking for attention and we're asking for affirmation, we're asking to be blessed. Because of the distractions of the world, Father's trying to bless us. And He's trying to speak into us. And we don't hear it because we're doing this or we're doing this. We're so distracted that we can't hear the voice of the Father. who is trying desperately to speak blessing into our lives. Because at the table, guess what happens? An identity is formed. At the table, when I sit down with my kids at night, you know whose job it is to tell them you are important, you are valued, you are smart, you are responsible? Now it comes a little harder these days, but it will get there, right? Whose job is it? It's our job as parents. It's the Father's job in your life and mine, and He's trying to speak it over you, and you can't hear Him. To be met with silence when all you need is a word was never the plan of the Father. His plan was for you to pull your chair in close at the table and for Him to sit directly across from you and for Him to say, "Hey, daughter, you are amazing. I realize today you feel like you dropped a lot of plates. I realize you feel like you are failing at more things than you're succeeding at. But you're mine. And the things that really matter are the things that I say. So tune out the distraction. Get rid of the distraction because you have been blessed. You've been blessed to know and understand your identity, whose you are, and why you've been created, the way that you've been created. I don't know if any of you have sisters, but sometimes my sisters and I get in trouble, like even as adults. So one day I did what, I've never done this with anybody else, but when my sister was at my house one day, I was like, "Can you help me rearrange the furniture?" You guys, that never ends well, does it? Just go home and ask your husband. He's going to tell you, no, this does not end well. So I decided I'm going to rearrange my furniture. Well, I had also recently, this is like the time in my life when I learned to use power tools. Have any of you ever learned, power tools? Yeah. I learned to use a drill. And I got to tell you, what a rush. So I decide I'm not only going to rearrange my furniture and I'm going to make my living room completely different, but in order to do so, I have to move my TV. Well, in order to do that, I had to move the cable. Well, you guys, I know how to run a drill, so it's okay. So I said to my sister, "We got this, right? We can do this. You can finish this, fill in the blank, I'm sure, before Brad gets home, right? So this is our plan. We're gonna pitch in, we're gonna get this done, and so here's what I do. I bribe my then maybe 5, 6-year-old to crawl under the crawl space. I'm not proud. You guys, there's pea gravel down there. I am not about to crawl through that. Nasty, no. So I bribed she's my 14 or 15-year-old now, so I bribed her to crawl under the crawl space. And so here's what I say. I'm like, "We're gonna go down there. You're gonna knock with the flashlight on the floor. Mommy's gonna do this on the floor. You're gonna beat back up, so you're gonna know that we're in the right spot, right? So then here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stand up here and I'm just gonna drill a hole right in the floor. This is no problem, you guys. I know how to use a drill. So we got the furniture all rearranged. I've got the drill in my hand. My little girl's crawling down there, there's snakes and whatnot down there. Okay, so I'm prepared and I'm ready to start drilling. And I go over the floor and I drill a hole. Silence. I'm like, "Mallory? Are you down there?" Nothing. Well, I'm not gonna panic here at this point. Great, now what? So I'm like, "Look, I had put a hole in the floor, you guys." So I have my flashlight and I'm shining it down there and I'm trying to see where she's at. Nothing, still silence. Then all of a sudden, I see her little flashlight shine up through the thing. She found the hole. It was like that moment in like Touched by an Angel when all the lights come together and you want to go, ah. Okay, it felt like that to me as a mom because I'm like, okay, I didn't kill my kid by letting her go underneath the house and all that. CPS, I was going to be safe for another day. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, what are we going to do? She's down there then trying to move the cable. And she's trying to pull it up back over through the other hole. And we couldn't make it reach, so I had to drill a second hole. And so I'm right in the middle of drilling the second hole in my floor. And guess who came home early? You guys, he never comes home early. So my sister's there. I'm standing there with my drill. I've paid my 5-year-old to get under the crawl space. It was like Mother of the Year, all rolled into like Mother of the Week and day and hour, like all in one. I was like super extraordinary mom in that moment. So my husband comes in and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Isn't the living room awesome? Look at this new setup. Like we're gonna be able to watch TV from here and it's gonna be so much more comfortable." And he's like, "Why are there holes in the floor?" Because I know how to use a drill. You guys, I won't even tell you at the time I used the Sawzall. Classic. Okay, so he's trying to figure out why I have all these holes in the floor, and I'm trying to explain it to him, and I have to tell you something. In that moment, I felt like a 5-year-old child who wanted to take all the naughty things I had done and hide them all behind my back so that he couldn't see anything that I had done. But the truth of the matter is, I had to allow him to see the brokenness so that he could help repair it. And so that he could improve upon the situation that I was in. So that he could take my broken mess and turn it into something good. And at the table, it's exactly what happens. You pull up your chair once again, you guys. You're taken. You're blessed. You know who you are. It's time to take all the broken pieces that you've been hiding and bring the broken mess to the table, knowing that He's enough to take the brokenness and create something absolutely glorious out of it. My living room turned out amazing. I don't know if the next people that bought the house even know there are that many holes in there. I'm assuming that once I moved my furniture, they figured it out, but I don't know. But here's the last piece. A shared piece at the table. We talked this morning about what it means to have a story. And how it's not okay to just take your story and to hold on to it and to keep it tight. Your story was made to be shared. And so here's our temptation as Christians much of the time. We realize we're children of the King, right? We can claim that authority, we claim that blessing, we even are willing most of the time to bring our brokenness to the table. But here's what happens. Now we continue to sit at the table. Why? Because the food's so amazing. We continue to sit at the table. Why? Because the blessings just keep coming. We continue to sit at the table because to get up from the table means it's going to require us to become uncomfortable. So we sit at the table and we get fat on our inheritance. I worry about the church. I worry about the fact that on Sunday mornings our churches look more like country clubs than clubs for the lost. Why? Because we're so comfortable at the table. At 6 o'clock every night, because he's not late, sometimes now I guess, because construction on I-69, dear governor, I will take care of this later. But he comes home about 6 o'clock every night, and here's the truth. I get what's medically diagnosed as hangry. I'm not sure the insurance codes, like, for all that, so if any of you are, like, in the medical billing industry, like, you can tell me afterwards, and I'll make sure that I get the codes right next time I give this talk. But I really am, like, ready to eat. And so here's what happens. When I hear the garage door pull, like, you know, it's like magic, basically. It's kind of like pulling in a Dairy Queen. That was glorious. But I hear that sound, and I'm like, okay, it is go time, people. So here's what happens. After you would think 16, 15, and 5 years, you would think that people would get the habit. Like, it takes, they say, on average 21 days for a habit to develop. But somehow my kids missed that memo. Because we're at like 16 years, and we still haven't developed the habit of come out of your room and show your face, help set the table. Because mama's hangry. And it's time to eat. So here's what I expect, right? In an ideal world, it would be like, I sit down at the table because guess what? I've done all the work ahead of time. I've cleaned the kitchen. I have, of course, cleaned all the vegetables to prevent pesticides. Wait, no, I buy organic. Just kidding. So I've done all the chopping, all the prep work. I've worked out. You're jealous. I've continued to do my regular work on top of this. Sometimes I even brush the dog. Sometimes I'll go the extra mile and spray Febreze in my living room so it doesn't smell as bad. So here, it doesn't seem like it's too much for me to expect my children to come to the table and say, "How can I serve you, mother dearest?" Like, this does not seem unreasonable to me at all. And so, in my dream world, I sit down at the table, and guess what they do? They fill the plates with our organic foods. They bring the silverware. They bring the ice waters, filtered water, of course. They bring their wonderful attitudes, and then they're even ready to go the extra mile. They're ready to lead in prayer. But this is so not my reality. It is, did you not hear your dad come home? How many times do I have to ask you to get up? Every night we eat with silverware. Is this a surprise to you? Could you grab the silverware? Every night we drink water. Hey, I know this is going to come as a real shock to you, but I'd like to drink with my supper. So every night it's the same kind of thing. And it just turns into, oh my goodness, it takes your hangry then to a whole nother level. And at this point in my day, I'm ready to be in my pajamas. And so I know it's early, but I'm old, so that's just what happens. So I'm just ready to kick back, but here's what happens. My kids come to the table, and I kid you not, they're so oblivious. They're like, oh, good, it's time for supper. And then they're like, what is this? You guys, this week, here's what I did. This is a true story. I said, it's pizza casserole. My daughter's like, where's the pizza? I'm like, you see that chopped up zucchini right there? That's your pizza. And we're gonna call it crust. It's got pepperoni and cheese on it, so it's all good, right? So yeah, they're picking through their plates. But here's the thing that really irks me. They come to the table every night, reluctantly. They have to be drugged. And I feel like they're saying, I'm gonna sit right here, and I'm gonna expect you to feed me. I don't expect you to take care of me. My kids aren't hosses like that. I don't know why I just pulled that face out. That's how I feel like they talk, okay? So I'm sitting there every night like, man, what I really want you to do is to say, I got this tonight, Mom. You blessed me. I'm going to take it from here. But I think that, I don't know, they really don't. But in my mind, I feel like they're sitting there saying, feed me, Mom. Feed me, Dad. You've made it pretty easy up to this point. Would you mind continuing? And that's how you and I approach our faith. We belly up to the table, and we pull up our chair, and we say, give me the blessing. Tell me who I am. Choose me. pick me. Here's my broken. Take and do something with it. Oh, and yeah, by the way, feed me till I get fat, and I can't. You're going to have to roll me out of here. Keep on feeding me, God. Here's what happens, you guys. We grow apathetic toward the fact that there are lost people who are coming into our churches on Sunday mornings who have different preferences than we do. Is there room at the table for different preferences? I thought the table was about me. And I thought the table was about me sitting and receiving my blessing. That's a piece of the entire meal puzzle, you guys. But we can't sit at the table forever. We have been called, we have been chosen, we have been taken, and we are being commissioned and being sent. It's not enough to live our lives comfortably at the table, day after day after day. You go to the table, get nourished. You go to the table, you get refreshed. You go to the table to find out who you are and how you're wired, and then what do? You push that chair back, and with everything in you, you rise up from that table as a daughter of the King. And you take who you are away from the table. And you learn what it means to live chosen, blessed, broken, and shared. Jesus didn't gather the disciples around or the people at on the hillside that day. He didn't say, hey, here's enough bread for me and my disciples, me and my church peeps. We're going to sit, we're going to gather in close, and we're going to feast. You all out there, I'm sorry that you're hungry. Sorry about your luck on that one. Maybe you should have thought ahead of time to bring food. He didn't do that. He took it, he blessed it. He took what was broken and he shared it. And that's how we should live our lives. Realizing that we're chosen, blessed, broken, but shared. So the table, in its symbolic sense this afternoon, represents our time to come together, to be with the Father. But I want you to understand that the table, in its very real sense, is out there. It's outside the walls of your home. It's in your office buildings. It's in Walmart. It's in McDonald's. It's in the kindergarten pickup line. The table is everywhere that you go. Because the table is in here. And in just a second, I'm going to give you the opportunity this afternoon to experience table. You're going to have the chance to take the bread and to take the juice. And I want you today to commission yourself to be shared. To not just be one of those Christians who sits back at the table and gets fat and sassy. Commission yourself today to come to the table and to leave refreshed and to leave empowered and emboldened, because we've been called to a greater purpose. And you know what? There's room at the table for more. What happened when Jesus took the bread and the loaves? There's plenty for everyone. So you may feel like, well, what if I can't continue to share, because what if the blessings run out? It's not going to happen. The Father is a Father of abundance. And so in just a second, there are going to be people up here who are holding baskets of bread and cups of juice. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read the scripture first, and then I'm going to have you to come forward. And I'm going to just have you form lines. Just take your time in your seats. We're going to make this a slow process, because here's what I want this to be. I want this to be a very individual, unique experience. I want you to say, at the table there's abundance. Help me as I learn to share from my abundance, Lord, as you pour into me. May I pour into others. Mark chapter 14, verse 22 begins like this. While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take it, this is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks and offered it to them, and they all drank from it. "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many." He said to them, "I tell you the truth." You guys listen to this promise that the next time we're at the table with the King, I tell you the truth, I will not drink again of the fruit of this wine until that day when I drink it anew in the kingdom of God, with you and with me at the table. Because of the sacrifice that he made, he invites us today to come, to take the bread, which represents the body of our Lord Jesus Christ, which was broken on your behalf. Take a piece of the bread and dip it in the juice, which represents the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, which was shed on your behalf for the forgiveness of sins. And then I'm just going to invite you to spend a few minutes alone up here at the altar in prayer, or if you need to visit one of the prayer rooms, you'll have just a couple of minutes to do that before we conclude together. So, I'd like to extend this invitation to you this afternoon to pull up a chair and to get comfortable and to pray for a new commissioning, that you might understand what it means to live taken and blessed and broken and shared. Come now to the table. If you're here this afternoon and you need a gluten-free option, we have that also for you over here as well. But I invite you now to come to the table, to taste and see that the Lord is good.